Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today I'm going to be doing a follow-up video to the one that I made a couple of days ago that talked about mitigation, or more specifically party-wide mitigation. The things that you can do to reduce the damage that your party takes from raid-wide attacks. In that video I did briefly mention some damage types, but I didn't really go into any specifics, so that's what this video is for. Now, the two major damage types you're probably very familiar with, physical and magical damage. These are the two that we encounter the most often in content, be it dungeons, raids and what have you, but there's actually two more. Darkness and gravity damage. Now, when mitigating physical and magical damage, it's really simple, because almost any mitigation will work on them now. The only ones that don't is Heart of Light and Dark Missionary. Those only work on magic, but Feint and Addle work on both now to some extent at least. But that's not the case for darkness and gravity damage. Darkness damage you can look at as unexpected damage. It can still be mitigated by skills that just reduce your damage taken, but don't specify what kind of damage they're reducing. So while your Feint and Addle won't work here, other things like Passage of Arms, Collective Unconscious, etc. will still work. So you still have a lot of ways to mitigate this damage type. But then in comes gravity damage. Barely anything will work on this because it's not a normal damage number that your whole party will receive. Instead, it deals percentage HP damage, so your tanks are going to be taking more than the rest of your team as they have bigger HP pools. This is why this damage type is really dangerous for tanks, because usually when a raid wipe happens, the tanks are the least of your concern, as they usually just get tickled by it anyways. But if there's a raid wipe that deals 70% of your max HP, your tanks are going to be taking that much as well, and if they're main tanking, then you might have to give them a little extra to ensure that they survive. So how do you mitigate this then? Well, all you can do is shield it. That's literally it. Luckily enough, both barrier healers now have an off-global cooldown shield, and we also have warrior and paladin that can shield the party, so you don't have to spend a GCD heal to put up shields. Do keep in mind that Divine Veil doesn't apply to the paladin themselves, but if they're off-tanking, then they'll probably be around max HP anyways, and then that shouldn't be an issue. So how do you go about identifying these damage types? Well, there's two ways, trial and error or FF logs. Gravity damage is very easy to spot, because if you're using any non-shield mitigation, you'll just see everyone drop very low, including your tanks. But the other three can be hard to identify, because so many things will work on them. Literally everything works on magic damage, so you never really have to worry about that one. And then once you notice your mitigation isn't really working that well, it can only be physical or darkness damage. And even then, Feint is the only one that will work on physical damage and not on darkness, and I guess Addle as well, because it still gives the 5% of physical damage now. The other stuff you have left will work on both physical and darkness. An easy way to know is to simply use FF logs or ACT. Now, I don't have any logs, so I can't show it on ACT, but I can pull up a random log from FF logs. So here we have the Ifrit section for the Weapons Refrain Ultimate. The orange you can see here is physical damage, these are his auto attacks. Then the blue, the Hellfire, just to give an example, is magical damage, and his tank buster Incinerate is darkness damage, which is indicated by the purple color. Now, gravity damage is also displayed in the same color as darkness damage. Looking at Eden Prime here, for example, his Eden's gravity and dimensional shift deal gravity damage, but they're still displayed in the same purple color. However, as I mentioned before, it's really easy to notice that it is gravity damage and not darkness by simply looking at how much damage your tanks are taking. And that covers pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about. So if you have any more questions, then feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.